Hello and welcome back. So it is getting to that stage of the year. It is coming around to championship time in about 4 to 5 weeks. So what I want to do in this video is give you a full blueprint on how you can optimize and maximize your performance for this time of year. So this is a blueprint that I would use with a lot of the athletes that I work with, and show you exactly step by step how we can work through this problem and really get you performing at your very best. So the first thing that we want to do is audit, and that is one of the most important things that a lot of people forget. We need to see where you are exactly at this current stage before we look at where we need to put the majority of our attention, or some of our attention at least. Okay, so we want to find our weak points, but also we want to make sure that we're clear on the goals that we want to set. So what we look at doing is look at a full composition assessment or full holistic testing profile. So we look at your energy system, we look at strength testing, and also look at your nutrition profiles, your sleep profiles as well, to make sure we get a full picture of where the bottlenecks are in your performance. So in terms of your energy system testing, that can be varied. Generally, I'm a big fan of off-feed testing, especially in season, whenever the demands on pitch are quite high. Asking players to go out and do for the likes of Broncos, or even 5-minute run tests, can often be a wee bit too much and put a bigger demand on the body, or a bigger recovery cost on the body that may be unnecessary. We can look at just substituting an off-feed test that is repeatable and also valid there, to get a picture of where we're at in terms of them energy systems. In terms of strength testing then as well, probably identifying that bridge between the gap between league and championship. That's probably going to be your best time to look at some strength testing, as doing it in season with games and whatnot can be a little bit more challenging. So I would look at keeping your strength testing, say your 5 or your 3 RM testing, to them times when you have a break between the league and championship. So that can be a good time to get, I suppose, your full audit done. The first week or 2 weeks after the league, that would be when I would target them specific testing times and get a good profile of where you're at. And as I say, then based off that, you'll see where's the bottlenecks, where's the areas that maybe you're falling down on, and also where's the areas that you really want to go after. So strength and power then is the first thing we will look at. And again, I'm just highlighting the fact that league and championship, or that time between league and championship, is a big opportunity. Generally across the season, you will see some drop-offs between your strength and power across, let's say, since pre-season. You often have a good block of work there in pre-season where you pump a lot of volume. You can get some strength gains there. But then once you go in season, games start coming thick and fast. The availability to do strength training and power training often goes down, hence why we see small little decrements to that in season, and that is fine. That's kind of part and parcel of it. To maintain absolute strength and get stronger in season often isn't really the goal. The goal is to perform at our best, and we want to try and do everything we can to minimize any strength or power losses throughout the year. But ultimately, the availability to maintain that, the availability to get them sessions in, or the volume required to maintain or improve, is often not there. So as I said, this is the opportunity that we can utilize to really just, I suppose, top back up them stores and get back up to our level of strength and power that we had, or even exceed it now in this break between league and championship. And this can serve the platform for then being at your very best and peaking for your championship. So what I would look to do is add a little bit more volume than maybe you've been doing in the in-season with games and whatnot. Within reason, obviously, we're not looking to add copious amounts of volume that you're going to be taking days and weeks to recover from. We want to just look at maybe 1 to 2 extra sets there across the week per muscle group or per exercise, and we're going to just slightly increase that volume. And really how I would split up my training week is I would go with one main strength session. That could be a standalone session, and then I would look at microdosing other units in throughout the week. So usually I'm a big fan of keeping my high days high, which essentially will be our pitch sessions. They will be our highest loading days, let's say, on the body and the central nervous system. So I like to couple up my gym sessions with that and utilize them days and get a lot of my work done on them days. So then whenever I'm off from training, I'm fully off and I'm fully recovering and tapping into that parasympathetic activation state where recovery truly happens. But if we're constantly just tipping into the nervous system, we're constantly, let's say, in the gym, we're constantly on the pitch, we rarely get a full off day, then your body's going to break down eventually, because you're in that sympathetic system constantly. You're always in that fight or flight state, and it doesn't really give you much of an opportunity to recover across the week. So as I say, I like to include pre and post training units. I'll show you exactly how I break that down now. But across the week, you can see that there's not that many gym sessions there, like big gym sessions. One full body, one pre-training unit, one post-training unit, and then an optional primer. That's often how I work it. This can vary from athlete to athlete depending on their goals, where they're at, etc. But again, as I said, I would use them pre and post training units to your advantage. Next is conditioning. Okay, so again, this is often a goal for a lot of athletes between that league and championship, because typically throughout the league, athletes can feel like their fitness is dropping off towards the end of the league. And that is a common problem for a lot of athletes. Maybe they haven't been staying on top of all feet conditioning. Maybe they haven't been including top-up runs if they weren't playing games at the weekend, or if they weren't getting minutes. And that can often lead to a decrement in conditioning across the year. So this will be obviously dependent on your on-pitch volume during this time. So, typically whenever there's the break between league and championship, a lot of athletes, or a lot of teams rather, will pump a little bit more volume onto the pitch. So maybe a couple of tough conditioning sessions, maybe a couple of tough challenge games, etc. So this will vary depending on the volume that you're hitting. If you're hitting huge amounts of volume on the pitch, then really the opportunity to do top-up runs isn't going to be there, and probably not the wisest decision, because that may be overdoing it. So what I would look at, if your pitch volume is kept to a regular amount and it's nothing exceeding a huge amount, then I would just look for one top-up run, and I would do that post your first training session of the week. So if you're training on a Tuesday, I would look to do your top-up run after that session on a Tuesday. That could be something like just about 5-10 minutes of tempo running, 100 meters, 200 meters, just to top back up them stores and get an extra bit of volume into the legs. Then I would look at one bike focus or one off-feet session, and this could be aerobic focused, as it will be a little bit easier to recover from. Just looking at some general adaptations to improve our overall capacity to tolerate workload. So this could be something like 4 by 4 minutes with 1 minute off in between, and then you're just going to be progressing that each and every week, whether it's progressing it by the reps, whether it's progressing it by the amount of time that you spend in 85% heart rate zone, or 85% plus heart rate zone. If you can get that down across the 4 by 4 minutes, that would be a good sign that you're progressing there in terms of your adaptations. So one bike session, one top-up running session, that's typically how I would work it. Again, the top-up running session will vary. That could look like, for some athletes, if they were maybe highly injury prone and they don't tolerate on-feet loading quite well, then I would mainly look to keep it all off feet. But again, that will vary. For some athletes as well, you can look at, they can just hammer pitch volume as much as possible. They could look at 2 top-up running sessions, but generally I'll keep it to 1 and 1 on feet and off feet. Then in terms of speed work, this will be position specific volume and demands. So for example, a midfielder versus a full back, Full back will be a lot more focused on accelerations and quickness off the mark and short intervals like that, whereas the midfielder may have greater opportunities to open up into a max velocity sprint or top end speed, or reach their top end speed. So we look at their, obviously given both athletes exposure to both of them demands acceleration and max velocity, but it will vary depending on their position. I would look to include one speed session per week. That will be a non-negotiable. Even from a hamstring injury prevention point of view, I would look to include that. Aside from the benefits of trying to get faster and improving speed, doing regular speed work will be one of the best injury prevention exercises you can do for particularly hamstrings, quads, calves, because whenever you go into a game, if you haven't exposed the body to, let's say, a max sprint or a max speed, then whenever it hits that max speed in game, that's often when injuries can occur, because it's not been exposed to that level of velocity or that level of speed. So exposing your body to that regularly will be the best way to improve your speed, but also to keep your body healthy. So one speed session per week. If this was a really big bottleneck for you and you felt you really wanted to improve it, what I would do is try and up that to 2 speed sessions per week. Okay, and then you probably just reduce down your top up running sessions per week. Okay, and again, the big emphasis here is keeping it low volume, but the intent and the quality has to be really high. That is the key. It's not about quantity with speed work. It's about quality. It needs to be hitting that 100% mark. You need to be getting up to your actual true max speed to actually get the benefits from doing speed work. So you have to run fast to get fast, essentially. So what does this look like on a week-to-week basis? I've went with the typical structure of, say, training Tuesday, Thursday and Sunday. Okay, so then I have pre and post, so pre-training, post-training, and typically on a Monday we'll have our main full body session of the week. Okay, this will depend on what the previous week looked like, whether it's going to be a little bit higher intensity, whether it's going to be pulled back a little bit to allow the body to recover. So this will vary, but again, it's good to get a good standalone gym session done early on in the week, so then that's going to be as far away from game day as possible. Then Tuesday will be our pitch day, so I will typically get my speed work done then prior to your training, and then post training session, that could be something like your lower body strength work. So again, the full body on Monday will be typically more upper body emphasis, because obviously you may have had a game the week before or the day before or 2 days before. So this could be, say, match day +1 or +2, and then as we come around to match day +3 or 4 on the Tuesday, I will look to do my speed work. And then the lower body strength, mainly this will be more hamstring specific, looking at longer eccentrics to build out that robustness, to build out that, I suppose, tolerance of the hamstrings, and more so kind of injury prevention focus there. So things like Nordics, things like barbell RDLs or seated hamstring curls, that's what I would look at including there, alongside other areas such as calves, quads, etc. But that would be a short and sweet session, maybe 1 to 2 sets, 3 to 5 reps with slower eccentrics. Okay, so fairly straightforward session, just a microdose unit across the week. So these smaller units across the week, so the pre and post training sessions are smaller in length, but they just allow us to get that stimulus into the body and or in a short period of time. Okay, so really useful way of doing it, rather than doing standalone sessions, as I said at the start, where you're constantly tapping into that nervous system, you're constantly causing the body to be in a state of recovery. You can then do all that work on Tuesday, and then you have a full day of recovery on Wednesday. So I just prefer to do it this way, rather than, if you were to do your lower body strength on a Wednesday, then you're also going to have to recover from that, and you're not truly, sitting in that parasympathetic state where recovery happens on that Wednesday. So then pre-pitch on a Thursday, so you're going to have your pitch session, but before that I would typically do something like upper body and power. Okay, so this can be your priming activities, your more explosive based activities like your band or your trap bar jumps, your broad jumps, any sort of plyometrics there involved as well, and your weighted jumps or your Olympic lifts you can include there as well. Then my upper body work, I will just include small bit of a pump session there with any top up strength work that I need to do as well. That's fine to complete pre-pitch, because generally you can train pretty well even with a little bit of upper body DOMs. Friday then will be off, and then Saturday, say if our game is on Sunday, I will look at an optional primer. Again, primers I leave open to the athlete's choice. Yes, while there is quite a bit of research there supporting primers as an effective tool, some athletes prefer and are, I suppose, easily overwhelmed in them areas around games. So match day -1 or match day +1. So what I want to do is respect their own choices around game time and make sure that they prepare how they want in that acute phase, let's say. Because the last thing you want to be doing is going down, forcing an athlete to go and do a primer session when all they want to do is relax at home and spend time with family or friends. And this can then lead them to be more frustrated, more stressed into that, let's say, sympathetic system or the fight or flight state, and then they feel worse going into game time because of that stress and frustration. Whereas if they enjoy it and they really get something out of it, then they will actually get the benefits, I feel, out of it. But if they're not enjoying it, then the stress, the frustration, I feel will often dampen any potential benefits that may be there with doing the primer itself. So this can be optional, and then Sunday would be game time. Okay. So lots of different ways that you can structure out the week. That is just one example of how you can structure it out in these sessions as well. So in our, let's say, power session here and our full body session, I'll also look to include some run specific isometrics for our tissue tolerance and our tendon tolerance, okay, and our tendon robustness. So things like on our Thursday, we'll probably look at more of an ankle isometric or run specific ankle isometric, and then on our Monday could be some more things. Let's say if we have a match, if we have a match a day before or 2 days before, I'll probably look to include some more extensive isometrics for recovery to help, I suppose, promote blood flow into them tendons and also then speed up the rate of recovery. So these could be something like single leg hamstring holds, anything like that, tabletop holds for maybe 30 to 45 seconds, just holding that body weight or a small amount of weight there. And that often helps a lot of athletes recover a little bit faster there. So that is the full picture. Hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll chat to you next week.